Community Club, and I'm going to make an example for anybody that's speaking. I don't want to see someone speaking without a mask, and if you feel comfortable enough speaking without a mask when you're up at the podium, please do. We haven't had a candidate tonight in at least a couple of years, and I'm very pleased with all the council members that are participating in this, and candidates that are participating in this. I appreciate your effort and your time. I know you guys have very busy schedules. It's not easy to do. I've done a random draw on the candidates. We have 7 council people getting ready to speak, and then we have 2 members on the list from the school board. I think only one of them is here from those. So what I'd like to do is figuring out by the amount of time we have, the amount of candidates, 5 minutes for the candidate to speak and 3 minutes for questions after they finish speaking. So I'd like to keep the questions to club members at the moment, unless we have some extra time. This is for, this meeting is for candidates to talk to the members of North Hill Community Club. So I'd like to keep, if we have time for additional questions from other people, but I'd really like to at least give priority to the North Hill Community Club members to ask questions first. So with that, are we ready to start? Tracy Buxton, City Council, position number 5.
Hi, thanks for coming out tonight. On a rainy night, there's probably a lot of other things you might want to do, right? Strolling in the park. Just kidding. So, my name is Tracy Buxton, and I'm a current council member for the City of Des Moines, position number 5, and I'm running to retain my seat coming up here. And I would say my platform is really the same as it was last time I ran, to work for a safe, green destination community, supporting those 3 core values. So I would say in regard to safety, that includes promoting safety for the entire community. So I've advocated on behalf of the community to the police force and to the staff and our leadership for safety features that different people would want in their community. I have advocated actually for the police force to the administration for things that the police force have wanted, or with legislators. Have worked on that route, and so as a result of my work in regard to safety, there have been little changes in our community. From a crosswalk sign to changes in park schedules and gates and things like that. So, and I think a lot of you know that we're adding a couple of new police officers and some mental behavioral health support for our police force also, so as part of that advocacy project. And so to the next point, in regard to green, I've been a pretty regular advocate for green issues, especially in regard to our trees, our tree canopy, and our forestry fund. So I'm always asking about that and how it's going. Got some questions in even as we speak, but not just in regard to advocacy, but I've been a real boots on the ground person in the community in regard to that. I go to a lot of these restoration events and maintenance events in our parks, taking out invasives and restoring by putting in indigenous plants. So, and then also just anything that comes across the dais in regard to our sustainability of our air and water, or reasonable sustainability of our air and water. So I'm an advocate of those things. And then the last thing is in regard to creating a destination community. I feel like one of the things I always try and weigh is, does this item promote creating a destination community? And is it, favorable to small business? Is it favorable to development? And I've been an advocate, here again, boots on the ground, active advocate for our small businesses. Small Business Saturday, also when COVID hit. I personally went and visited, when COVID hit, every single eating establishment in this entire community and asked them, is there anything we can do to help you? And so whether it's big business or small business, I work really hard. I'm on the Southside Alliance for Economic Development, so it's a regional seat. I'm the vice chair there and on our Economic Development Committee with the city. So really try and stay in touch with whatever issues could be helpful to our business community. And even then, reaching out into the community or brainstorming about how we can either create education for the workforce or more sustainable practices or healthy commerce in our downtown or creating more recreational or entertainment possibilities. So I'm always working that. And so did I come up with those 3 core values? Safe, green, destination, and community. And it's from my interactions with the community, both through campaigning, whether it's door to door, on somebody's doorstep or in a public event or even personally. I've a constant open invitation for anybody. I will meet with you one-on-one, and I've set aside a whole day, opened an entire day just to sit and wait for people to come and talk to me. So I am very available, and that's how I get my input. So how much more time do I have?
37 seconds.
Oh, well, so I'd say that's how I built those core values. And when it comes to my decisions from the dice, whether it's creating, evaluating our budget, which we're in budget season right now, or any decision that comes down across the agenda, if it's like, I'm not exactly sure how to weigh this, I weigh it against those 3 core values. So that's how I stand as your council member and representative. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, anybody? For Tracy? Matt?
Yeah, I have one question for you. Maybe you can explain this a little bit more in depth. I know that you follow the media or the blogs and everything else. And there's a lot of comments on the marina and the gates.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate as to the benefits and everything that goes on down there when there wasn't the gates?
Well, boy, there's so much that can be said there. The gates were put in chiefly to create a revenue stream so that we could bond the activity down there, the building of the rebuilding of the bulkhead. But as a unintended consequence or unexpected consequences, it really increased safety and upgraded the atmosphere down there. And as a runner, regularly running the park down there, the trail, there was nothing so unnerving as coming out of that trailhead and seeing a bunch of very large young men, smoking chemicals and playing music loud and having to, and I'm gonna have to go through that alone to get to the park. And that doesn't happen down there anymore. And I do hear from residents who live adjacent to the marina area and even a block over, that the whole atmosphere down there has really changed, whether it's crime or illicit activities. So
Thank you.
I hope that's what you're looking for.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you
for your time. Next up, Harry Steinmetz.
Good evening, the wet, wild, and wonderful fall of the Pacific Northwest. I'm glad to see enough people here because really, I thought we might have an attendance problem tonight, but I think there's a lot of people who are interested, and that's fantastic. So I'm running for position number 1. I am unopposed. My opponent, Mayor Pina, dropped out right at the last minute, and no one else was able to get into the race at the time when he got out. I do want to clear up some rumors that have been propounded that there was no agreement, there was no conspiracy, there was no plan. I was planning on running against Mayor Pina. In fact, I called several members of the council to let them know that I was going to run against Mayor Pina, not the least of which is Mr. Harris right there. But apparently, those rumors still exist, and I just need to put them to rest. There simply hasn't been any kind of a deal cut to do anything. there are 4 basic pieces that go into city council work: public safety, parks, pavement, and planning. Now, public safety is the broad picture that includes the police, but also fire response, emergency response, and things like that. We have a police department that is small, and we have a very long community. And there are problems all the time with trying to get enough staffing. And then if people get sick, people go on paternity leave, people do that. We just simply need to hire more police officers so that we have the ability to respond to things in a timely fashion. I think one of the things that our current chief, Chief Thomas, has done that's very smart is he's created data mapping of where the complaints are coming in so that he can deploy patrols to those particular areas. What I want to see is I want to see a very well-trained, very professional police department, and I think we're on our way to get there. Secondly, our parks. Now, we don't have a lot of extra land left, but the current council has been able to acquire land up in Pack Ridge, and has started expanding what's now called Midway Park. And so all the parts of the city are starting to enjoy recreational areas, areas where they can congregate. There's even a community garden up there, and it needs to be maintained. Parks also includes after-school care in our Parks and Recs department, because we need to take care of the kids while their parents are working. And that really is an obligation I think that the city should explore. When my kids were growing up, they're both in college now, and they don't need after-school care, sort of. We were lucky to have somebody at Woodmont Elementary School who was there after school and helped take care of the kids. I think that was a great program, and it was very affordable, and it just provided that gap in the day for some adult supervision. And I think we need to really look hard at how we can fund that back again. Pavement, it's about the streets. That's really sort of the quality of life that the city can provide. The city needs to be sure that streets are paved, they're picked up, they're doing the things that make this a nice place to live. And if we're not doing that, then I don't think that City Council is doing its job. We were started to do some paving about 2 or 3 years ago. Unfortunately, COVID put the stop on that, but we need to make sure that it's built into the budget so that there's a regular, steady stream in order to fund regular, steady paving of all the streets in this town on a regular basis. And it's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. Once you finish, you just go back to the other side and start again. And then lastly is planning. Planning is kind of the fun part, 30 seconds, because that's where people get excited about this. But we've got a lot of big projects that need to be done, and we've got a fairly limited budget to do that with. This council has decided that the marina is the first priority, and things have started there. I think that's a good place to start. I think it is the front porch to our city, if you will. And so it's an important piece to do that. But as that gets done, we need to focus on downtown. We need to focus on trying to figure out a solution to the Masonic retirement home and how we can keep that in the community. And so those are the things that I would like to do if I'm elected. Thank you.
All right. Questions?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned about how you go to work with children to get them to the point of where you want them to go. What are the specific plans?
I couldn't quite understand you. I'm sorry.
You mentioned that you're working on a plan to get the children developed to the point where you would like to see them to be. What specific plans do you have in mind?
Is this the after-school care program you're asking about?
Yeah, after school or in school, whatever program.
Yes, we already had an after-school care program that was fairly extensive, and that's the model that I would use to go forward. And what it did, in my own experience, is they had 2 people who were local students, college-age students, maybe a little bit older than that, who were doing part-time jobs, and they would come into the school and care for the kids. One of them was a former point guard for the Rainier Rams and would just run my kids ragged on the basketball court, and that was great. There was another one there that would do arts and crafts with the kids who preferred to do that, and so there was some different kind of activities, because not one size fits all, and they have to be creative about that. But that's the plan or the model that we follow in trying to put that after-school care back into the schools.
You talked a lot about police support at the beginning of your speech, and I'm wondering, we still have the 2 Safeways that are rough areas, and we still have a lot of probably minor crime, mailbox thefts, car thefts, lots of it going on right now. What is, are we getting, I heard we're increasing 2 officers. Is there any plans for that, or any plans to increase from that too? To make this, I mean, it seems like as we become more acceptance of certain level of crime, where I don't think we should.
Yeah, I don't think people are accepting a certain level of crime, and that's why the city's trying to respond to it. I think the city needs to respond to it by putting more cops on the beat so that they have a faster response rate. One of the other things that we can do is to try to make sure that those who are committing those crimes and get convicted of that, and I'm a former criminal defense attorney, so I really do understand people who are committing crimes and the multitude of reasons why people do that. That they have the resources that they need to sort of get their life straightened out a little bit. It's not a situation where we're going to simply arrest our way out of it and we're going to punish them enough. The problem is that we have some real issues in society that may be on the scope of what a city can do. But a city can provide more police department and a better criminal response, and I think that's the direction that we can.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Matt Mahoney.
Thank you. I'm Matt Mahoney. I'm your current deputy mayor. A little bit about myself. I've been a member of the North Hill Community Club for about 8 years and a trustee for 6. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I've had a plethora of different jobs. Currently, I'm a buyer at Nordstrom. I've been there for about 22 years. I have about 35 years of business experience. I've had environmental development background when I was at Crystal Mountain, and so many other things. I'm very active and engaged in the community. There's not many events that I don't attend, that I'm not part of, that I don't orchestrate. My wife and I chair the Waterland Parade. My wife's president of Rotary, and we just feel that this is our window of time to serve our community, and we enjoy doing it. My regular job, I work about 50 hours a week, and I probably give at least 30 or 40 to the city every week as well. And so it feels like 2 full-time jobs, and if you add campaigning this year, it feels like 3. I'm sure a lot of my fellow candidates can feel the same way. I ran, and I'm still sticking to what I ran, is to move this town forward. When I started, I read a document that described our town in 1962, and unfortunately, little had changed when you look at downtown. What I believe is that the marina development is actually the catalyst. Once we get the marina developed, we have a private property in the downtown area. Well, that requires a desire for people to come here with amenities that they want to make an investment in our community. And I'm talking developers as well as investors, and even business owners that want to come here. So that's why I truly believe that we need to develop the marina, because it is our porch, as somebody else said. I thought that was a great reference. That's what brings enthusiasm. That's what brings vibrancy to our community. That changes what we look at every day with 1962. The truth is, downtown's private property. We got a lot of land bankers there. Nothing else but that. The truth is, we make it attractive for people that can really buy these properties and develop them. That's what we're after. Something like the theater is a glance of what I think the future is going to be in our town. We want, of course, keep that small town filled. We want to protect our views and all those kinds of things in mind. And the waterfront down in Redondo is just as important, and we've got some great plans there. I'm really big on the, like Pack Highway 2. We've got the light rail station coming in. We've got the, light rail station across from Highline College, and that's going to be important. We've got some great opportunities to build quality, affordable housing and give people opportunity to commute into work and have a great place to live in our community as well. We can do that throughout that area. I'm a huge guy on public safety. I was a big advocate with some of our American Rescues Act to fund police. I wanted 4. And the compromise, I settled for 2 and a mental response person, and I would have taken 4 and a couple mental response people as well. Because the thing is what's happened here is a lot of people don't realize is, particularly lately, there's been some policy change. King County, the prosecutor, is downgrading felonies to misdemeanors or outright dismissals, so he's pushing the problem back on the cities. We've had some recent state legislation, honestly, that where the pendulum maybe have been swung too far. And unfortunately, with COVID, which has been 18 months of my tenure, that's been an extreme difficulty. So like our jails are only about 40% capacity because if they're not an imminent threat, they're not keeping them in there. So the problem is you've got career criminals out there, and that's why you've got an uptick in violent crime. So what we can do is add more police officers while this all gets sorted out and figured out and money gets funding and solutions, and we want to get there. But with more police, we can at least do deterrence and protect our folks as best we can. It's a reality we're facing. I believe in improvements in parks. I've fully supported us procuring additional property and the playground equipment we put in there and so forth, and I'll continue to look for opportunities. We're working on some parks and trails. Paving, I wanted to talk about that. We've actually been paving streets up here, and it was a great partnership with the water district. Right? The truth is we were able to pay half. Paving's expensive. It's $1 million a mile, right? So you can work with partnership with utilities and get it done. And an example was on District 54 on 8th Avenue, as well as the 11th streets we're going to be paving up here. And we've done 223rd and 216th. So we've been paving roads, and we've been using the money allocated for that to get that done. I'm big on the fiscal responsibility. The fact that I've been on part of the council where we've been fiscally responsible. We've improved the credit rating. We're at the second best. The way you get the best is you survive a recession or a pandemic. Guess what? We're going to get the best credit rating. So when we do all this work and we have to bond, we're going to get the best rate and be the cheapest cost to our residents. And the last one, I'm a firm believer that there's room for everybody in this community. I always say unity for community. I believe in celebrating our differences rather than pointing them out. And I love our town, I love our mix, I love our diversity, and I wholeheartedly support it.
I gotta cut your questions down to 30 seconds.
Okay, sorry.
All right.
Go ahead.
Hi, Matt. Question.
Hi, how you doing?
Great. So we talked a little bit about safety and policing and increasing our police force. I haven't been involved in politics in Des Moines at all, but I read my city currents, and I was shocked earlier this year to look at they had pictures of all of our police department, and it's a very, very white group. And we have a very diverse city. Are there any attempts at creating some diversity in our police force?
I asked the same question, and I'll give you the answer I got. They actually really try hard to apply. It's been amazing at who applies at our force. We've been taking the best candidates we can get, but I agree with you. We need more diversity on our police force, and I support that. It's it's a city manager function, but a city manager and city staff function to hire, but I can tell you that in my conversations, I've supported us trying to get more diverse. Yes, sir.
The last time I talked to you,
Yeah.
we were in the street corner in downtown at the one stating.
Yeah, Big Catch Plaza.
Yes. Okay.
I remember.
I remember that. Now, when you said about what you're trying to do to increase the participation of the citizens in the law enforcement, what exactly in mind is that?
For public participation with the police force? Yes. Well, I support a police advisory board, which we have, and there's a diversity board as well, which I support as well. And I believe in having the police, like when I hear about events in the city and so forth, I always notify the chief, and I try to get the police to show up to have conversations and be available to the public. I'm really proud of our police force. We're one of the most modern thinking groups. We're going to support the body cameras. We're using drones. We were already using de-escalation techniques. We were using the 8 ways, as well as what was the word I was looking for? We're always trying to find a new one where mental response is what I was looking for. We're looking for the best ways to do what I call modern day law enforcement. That's fair and just. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, next we have Priscilla Marcus running for council position number 3.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see friends and neighbors and opponents. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. My name is Priscilla Marcus, and I'm running for position 3 for the city council. It is currently being held by Louisa Bangs. It means a lot to me to have you here tonight and to take the time to have us come and meet you in person. It is a very challenging time with COVID, and I know that some of us are probably getting kind of tired of it, but hopefully we're going to get to a point where we're feeling a lot better about being in public and doing things like this where we're not even wearing a mask. Eventually, maybe we'll get there. It's been a long time. I wanted to just share a little bit about me. For some of you that may not know, but I am someone that has worked in the public sector. It's one of the reasons why I'm running for city council, because I've been like a public servant for a long time, but in the transportation arena, mostly public sector, working with seniors and people with disabilities. And my experience or my expertise is mobility. It's basically to try and get people from point A to B, especially people with disabilities that have maybe a little bit more challenge when it comes to getting from point A to B. And so it's been something that I've been involved with for over 30 years, actually over 31 years. So it's something that really means a lot to me. And so about 3 years ago, I pursued a position with the Des Moines Senior Services Advisory Committee. It's a mayoral appointment, so I've been on that committee for about 3 years. I wanted to really give back to the community, and that was my way of starting to get involved with the city. So it kind of gives me a good opportunity now to pursue city council with who I've met, the kinds of work that I've done. And so I really believe that I can bring a different perspective maybe than what is on the council at the moment, being from a transportation background and also a background with working with people with disabilities and seniors. If elected, my highest priorities include public safety. I am endorsed by the Police Guild, and it's really a big deal to me, as it should be. I have done several ride-alongs, which has been enlightening. Not too much excitement, but I guess that's a good thing in a sense. But there's more opportunity for ride-alongs. So I really look forward to being on the council and being more involved with public safety and emergency management group and being involved with that effort. Economic development of the Des Moines Marina and the Redondo Marina is certainly way high on the list, and revitalization of downtown and the surrounding neighborhoods. And of course, affordable housing is important. It's not necessarily something that I have talked about very much, but I think it's important. And job creation to me is even more important with the opportunity to have a livable wage. So all of those things are important to me, and they're my highest priorities. Certainly, I have not been an elected official, so I don't have the experience that Tracy has and Matt has speaking this evening. But what I'd like to say is I really look forward to the opportunity, because I think, again, I can bring a perspective with my skills and my expertise to the table as a collaborator, as someone that is transparent, and someone that wants to really build consensus. So with that, I have been endorsed, like I said, from the Police Guild. I just recently received an endorsement from the Seattle King County Realtors. Several of the members of the council have endorsed me, and I know for some, I've received some information about that I'm not necessarily, that not everyone that's on the council is someone that they really would appreciate me being endorsed by. Sorry to hear that. I look up to Matt, I look up to Tracy, I look up to Jeremy, Matt Pina, and Jeremy Nutting. And I think they're really great individuals, and I appreciate that endorsement. I've also had the endorsement of the 33rd District of Democrats and the Diversity and Inclusion Democrats. So with that, I hope that you've gained some little background about me and where I'm at and what my interests are. Certainly look forward to your questions, if you have any questions this evening.
Okay, any questions?
Sure.
You mentioned about economic development. That's, everybody who's running for any office anywhere in the country mentions economic development because one of the most important things that goes on in our society. What exactly do you have in mind?
Well, economic development, again, there's a lot, and I think previous speakers have already said, we have a gem in this city. There's a lot of opportunity in Des Moines for more economic development. And I think that one of the real gems is the marina. And so with the development that is underway, that's being planned, that's going to really bring a lot of opportunity and a lot of business into Des Moines. And that's really what I'm referring to. It's just giving us more opportunity for growth in our economic arena so that we can be even more successful as a city. I mean, one of the things that Matt had brought up is that we have a better credit rating now. The city of Des Moines has a better credit rating. Well, there was a lot of work involved to get there, and we don't want to go back. We don't want to go backwards. So, that development is going to be really critical for the city to really maintain and evolve and become even stronger. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
You talked about job creation and livable wage. What do you think of livable wages for, let's say, a single mother with a small child?
What do I think a livable wage is?
Yeah, what would that be?
I would say certainly living in Washington State, in this area,
Yeah, in King County.
in King County, a livable wage would be at least on an annual basis. And again, haven't been asked that question before. I would say at least, $50,000 to $60,000 annually, probably more, maybe a little bit more. I know the median is about 70,000, because it's difficult, especially depending on where you're living.
So assuming they're living in Des Moines, and if
Well, that's
livable-
what I mean.
Yeah, so if a little, let's say you said 70,000, so that would be, I don't know, 30 some odd dollars an hour. How would you be able to help create jobs of that amount in our community?
Well, I think it takes more than just me. It takes a team, and the city council is just one entity, one group of people that will be working with the city manager, the staff, to come up with ways in which that could become more than where we're at now with the livable wage that we don't necessarily have. We're looking at minimum wage and the requirements for minimum wage, at $15 an hour.
I think minimum wage is $13.50 an hour.
$15.50?
$13.50.
1350.
Well,
It's 15.
It's 15. It's 15.
Yeah.
Okay,
Federal is 13.
we've got time, I'm sorry.
we're good?
Yeah.
State 15, so here in Seattle 15.
15.
Federal 13.50.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
I thought it was 15.
thank you, Priscilla.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we're good, right?
Yeah. All right, let's start, before we take a break, it's Soleil Lewis, running for council position number 7.
Oh gosh, thank you to the North Hill Community Club for inviting me here today. My name is Soleil Lewis. I'm running for City of Des Moines City Council position number 7. I am a special education teacher. I'm also a proud Teamsters 763 union member. I'm endorsed by Congressman Adam Smith, the Representative Tina Orwell of the amazing 33rd District, and also the Washington State Educators Association and the MLK Labor Council. I'm here today, and the reason why I'm running for City Council is because of a 3.6% sales use tax that went into effect in our city. And there was no vote from the 31,792 people who live here. Imagine that, no vote. 31,792 people who live in this great city. But moreover, that means that anything you buy in Des Moines is affected by a sales use tax that you did not receive a ballot on. So you think about the real life implications of this. When you look at your daughter or your son who has, let's say, diabetes, you have to now tell them, I'm sorry. Not because of the fact that it's my fault, but I'm in a situation now I can't buy insulin for you because I now have to pay for taxes that I did not get a vote on. And I do not want anyone in this community to not have a say in how their tax dollars are being used. The other factor in this is that because we live in a city of 31,792 people, we also have a situation in our city where only 31% of our total population will shop downtown and spend their tax dollars in our city. They would rather go to Burien, SeaTac, Des Moines. And if we truly are talking about economic development long term, we also have to look at how are we supporting our businesses reflective to the aesthetics and how our businesses look, the grant supports that we could provide in partnership with a better relationship with our King County Council member, and how our grant flows and how we are actually connecting to not just the 30% in the marina, which is great, but the 70% that live in every other area of Woodmont, Zenith, and North Hill. And that is the reflective change that we need to see in this city moving forward. And that is why I'm running, because I reflect that, of living in Woodmont, seeing how people that look like me are not always at the table, but they're always there for the vote. So that's just me in a nutshell why I'm running for City of Des Moines City Council position 7. So, yeah.
Questions or?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Last run of that's good at 3 minutes. Okay. Questions for Soleil?
I was very upset when I got my last Currents magazine and saw there's activities for kids. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. Activities for seniors. Absolutely nothing. I mean, I grew up in a town of, 13,000, and we had activities for kids. It wasn't even an incorporated city, but that was the priority. We had, there was softball, there was day camps, there were after schools, there was arts and crafts at the playground. There was nothing here. I just absolutely don't get it. I mean, so here we're paying this extra money, but then there's nothing. So here we've got a parks department, and we've got, the highest paid city manager around with a great big nice fat salary and ongoing and blah, blah, blah. And if I hear one more time about this great rating he got us, well, that's great, but, we certainly have paid for that. But what do the kids get out of it? A big fat nothing, So if this is a city for everyone, well, then the kids need to feel part of it. And here we're paying, but again, what are the kids in Woodmont getting out of it?
Yeah. The biggest thing that I can tell you is it's also about actually, when I speak to people in my community of Woodmont, but also North Hill and every part of Des Moines, they tell me that I do not have accessibility for my kids for daycare. That's a big issue. And the other issue too in our city is that we need to implement a grant administrator. We should have proposals when the American Rescue Plan Act funds came down the line. There should be consideration that we have hired a grant administrator, someone to provide oversight, to also even looking at Best Starts for Kids, the levy, that we can track the money and also make sure we have a plan in action to support in providing free access for daycare. I've met so many parents that have told me, where do I find free childcare? I usually have to go and pay through KinderCare or wherever. And that's something that I also want to change as my own personal experience as a special education teacher, but also working as a daycare worker, where parents did not have the money for the tuition waivers. And so it was cities like the city of Seattle that were able to provide through the early childhood department, and that's something I want to create and start a department in our city, is to provide services for our parents to get access for daycare services, to get access to say you can get a waiver for this kind of a thing. So, yeah.
Have you thought about, instead of city council, have you ever thought about running for the school board?
Oh gosh, no. I think for me, the biggest thing that I could see is as a
Everything that
teacher.
you're talking about is for the Highline School District. It has nothing to do with the here.
Okay. So the biggest thing that I can say as an office manager, working in the Highline School District, is that the city is always in relationship
So you
with.
work at the Highline School District also?
No, I used to be office manager Highline School District. And one thing that I can say is that the Highline School District is always in partnership and working with other cities. So another factor that you have to think about is that when it comes to daycare services, when I was an office manager, I had to deal with parents calling me day in and out saying, how do I get daycare services in Des Moines? Who do I contact? I find that the city of Des Moines had partnerships with certain daycare services, but those daycare services were not free. So if you were making, you were lower income and you did not have the money available to pay for daycare services, it did not benefit you, that partnership. And that is why I'm running for city council as well, because everything is always interconnected and you can never get away from that factor, so, yeah.
I just had a clarification question for myself. The 3.6% in-use tax that you said was Des Moines only? Are you talking about the King County one that went through?
No. At the peak of the pandemic, a 3.6% sales use tax went into effect in our city. It went into effect from the city manager. This is in the city of Des Moines. How that works is that sales use tax affects anything that you buy in Des Moines, but moreover, the reasoning for why it was implemented was due to the fact that there was failed revenue. There was a loss of revenue due to the pandemic. That was the letter in response to why the sales use tax went into effect. But the problem I have for me and for a lot of constituents that I talk to, there's people in the community I talk to, they say, why didn't I get a ballot for this? You will see in our 2021 ballots, you will see in the city of Normandy Park, they are giving their community the right to vote on tax levies. They're saying you can vote on said tax levy here and you can say yea or nay to it. But in our city, we are not having that conversation, and that's why I'm here to change that. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate everybody's questions and participation so far, so let's keep this going. We've got Gene Oxiger. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Oxiger? Yes.
Oxiger? Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here, and thank you to the North Club for sponsoring this. I really appreciate it. My name is Gene Oxiger. I've been in the community, I say community, not the city. I've lived in Redondo for 45 years, and I've been a citizen activist that entire time. I was the president of the Redondo Community Club for 14 years, so clear at the other end of town, I appreciate, the fact that we have, community club up here at North Hill, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. I've been involved in all kinds of activities. One of them was in 1996. I helped run the campaign to annex Woodmont and Redondo to the city. Then I actually went off to, I was employed as a journalist with the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, and I became the president of the newspaper guild union. I don't know how many of you remember the 2000 newspaper strike between Times and PI. Well, I was head of the union. So after that whole thing happened, and the PI then finally, lingered on until 2009, at which time we walked in one day, we're told, this is it, this is the last edition, and 163 of us, I think, were gone the next day. So one of the things that happened is that I was trained on proprietary software, so I had to come back. I had to come out and go to Highline College to learn how to use the generic software. So I came back, and one of the first things that I was asked was, can you help save Mount Rainier Pool? Because the city had decided to have the money to keep operating the pool. So I ran that campaign. I'm proud to say that here we were in the midst of the worst recession since the Great Depression, and we got the taxpayers, 64% of the taxpayers agreed that having something for our kids, a place for our kids to learn how to swim, was important. And after that, I was asked to help do the same thing with the city of Tukwila and help save the Tukwila pool. This is an example of active, participation areas that our kids really need. And I then, in 2014, became the president of the Moines Legacy Foundation. And our efforts have always been to support disadvantaged youth and seniors, and to enable them to participate in the Parks and Rec programs. So I've had a lot of experience in the community, a lot of volunteer service. And so right now, what I'm doing is, the reason I'm running is, I'm really concerned about what's happening to our kids, particularly in relation to, the COVID pandemic. You stop and think that kids are in school for 13 years, K through 12. By the time, we're actually rapidly approaching 2 years that they're going to have disrupted education. This is a serious, serious problem. And the teachers at this point are not particularly getting any help from the city. Before the pandemic, we had, very active programs, before and after school programs, rec programs for the kids to, participate in. 30 seconds. These are very, 30 seconds. Okay, these are very important, and it's an active process that we have going here. Kids are actually involved, and there is programming. Unfortunately, what I see is happening with our parks right now is we're going to a passive program, where basically what it is that we will have opportunities for kids to go and play at a park, but really the only thing the city is doing is mowing the lawn. There isn't the opportunity to, have. Go ahead.
Sorry, why I went loud. Okay. Questions? What position are you running for?
Position 3.
Thank you. Okay, anybody have other questions for Gene?
It's not very
Oh,
good.
I'm looking at the tripod. Sorry.
Okay, I'll have one. So what kinds of things would you like to see done?
Well, okay, one of the problems we've got right now is, particularly now with the pandemic, we do have a problem with, we're down to one after-school location in the city. The kids are having to be bused to the field house. It used to be at each individual city and individual school, and we used to also have before school programming. Okay, the rec programs are out, in which I'm really disappointed in Moines' response to this, because if you look at Burien, because it's online, normally it has to be an even number, but they have a 23-page brochure of activities for kids and seniors to do this fall. It's 24 pages in Federal Way, it's 24 pages in Kent, 16 pages in SeaTac, it's 40 pages in Auburn. We have 8 lines. 8 lines, okay? People talk about, policing and public safety. When you talk about juvenile crime, it happens usually between 3 and 6 p.m. The number one way to stop that is to have, supervision and activities for the kids to, participate in. We're not doing that. We need to restore that.
Yes. Okay, I don't know what you guys are doing, but why don't you bring this up to the school board? Why not go to Highline and say, get your act back together?
It's not the school district's responsibility.
It is the school district's problem.
It is not the school
100%.
district's responsibility.
If they take and spend a little bit more money on the students and forget all. In fact, what I'd like to see is the school board go after Highline School District and say, we're whacking off 33% of the top people at the office. You're out of here. We're going to take those funds, we're going to put them back into the schools for nurses and for councilmen. We have no council in the schools. Our students have no way to talk to a counselor to go on. Our school system here in the Highline School District is horrible. Just horrible. Look what they've done to our premier Mount Rainier. They have killed it.
Okay,
Well, we'll get
your comment was that the concerns about.
And they want the Moines to be sponsored in the school.
We're talking about Parks and Rec.
Yes, exactly. It's Parks
Well,
and
then
Rec.
talk Parks and Rec and forget about the schools.
We're
That's
talking
where the
about
kids
Parks
come
and
from.
Rec.
Everything has been about the school system.
But that's where the kids come from.
Educating our children is probably, people talk about our future. If we don't educate our children, we're going to be in deep trouble. Okay?
Correct. I don't
And there
disagree.
has always
We
been-
haven't educated our children for the last 18 months, have we?
There has always been a partnership between the cities.
The last 18
And
months, the Highland School District has done nothing for our students. Nothing.
I would disagree with you, but there has always been a partnership between the cities through the Parks and Rec Department and the schools. There's that time period that schools are dealing with the students and direct education. But as far as other activities, which, the rec leagues, those are important learning
So
situations.
was there
but those
football,
are
basketball, or
I
baseball?
don't mean to stop, but we've gotten through our time already. So, thank you, Gene.
Okay.
Next up is Brad Doviak, council member, position number 5.
Hi, thank you, Northville Community Club, for having me here today. I'm running for position 5. I am running for city council because I like to help people. I really, in my community, I've been in Des Moines for 14 or so years. I am a block watch captain for the last 10 years. I've been on the Des Moines Police Foundation board for the last few years as well. Public safety is one of my biggest concerns for my community. If you don't feel safe going to a park, you're not going to go to a park. If you don't feel safe walking to school or walking your kids to school, you got to drive them to school, and that's not good for the environment. That's not good for your community. If you don't feel safe taking a walk around your neighborhood, walking your dog, taking your kid out in the stroller, you're not going to do it, and that leaves our communities more vulnerable. And so, by enhancing public safety, really supporting the police department and trying to keep crime down where people do feel safe, that really spreads out to the rest of the community. I know a lot of us who have come up here and talked today have really talked about public safety as being one of their priorities. That's really why. I mean, you can't develop an area economically if nobody wants to go to the shops. So public safety goes hand in hand with everything else. One of my other big issues is economic development in the area. I would love to see, and I brought this to the city council a few years ago in public comments, is I would love to see like a cohesive signage in our downtown core. I don't know, I'm no esthetician or anything, but the mishmash of banners and temporary signs and everything that's down there, I would really like to see kind of something like you see in other little seaside towns where all the signs look the same. I mean, I don't want to go full Leavenworth where everything's all German like that and everything, but it looks nice when you go to those towns and people go to Leavenworth because they like that atmosphere. I'd like people to come to Des Moines because there is an atmosphere of cohesiveness in the downtown area. And I put together a proposal to help make that happen in our town, so it's not a burden on our small business owners to put new signs up and everything, and for new businesses that come in as well. I have a master's in cybersecurity. I've been doing IT work for about 20 years or so. I like to solve problems. That's why I got involved in that. And in today's climate, with all the ransomware and files getting hijacked and everything, having somebody on the council that really understands that aspect that I've been doing for the last 20 years, I think would be a good addition to our council as well. It's the new times that we live in. Things have changed so much in just the last 4 or 5 years on that level, and that's just another aspect of crime as well. I'm not even gonna use all my time.
Okay,
That's good. I'll take some questions.
You talked about the economic development during, like on the main street of Des Moines. From the candidates that I've heard, I mean, our biggest push right now is for the marina development.
Right.
But the marina development is going to take several years at least.
Oh yeah.
So do we have to wait for the downtown part to develop it? And we have to wait for the marina before the rest of the downtown starts developing more?
So it's one of those catch-22s where, well, nobody's going to come until we do this. Nobody's going to come until we do this. And so, but we don't have the money to do this unless the people come. So you kind of have to it's kind of like Thanksgiving dinner. You got to be working on 4 or 5 different dishes at the same time and try and make it all come together at the same time. The marina's getting some work done right now, and that's great. It's going to be a good facelift for our front porch down there. Once that starts happening and businesses start seeing that, they're going to start developing a little bit more down there. And if we can get a little more cohesiveness or accessibility between the marina and like 7th Avenue and Marine View Drive, then it'll be a more comprehensive experience when you go down there, instead of, I'm going down to the marina, I'm going to the restaurant. If you just go, I'm going downtown, you can do the marina, you can do the restaurant, you can do it all together. And that's my vision for, I mean, that might not even be a 5-year plan, that might be a 10-year plan down the road. But it's baby steps. You can't eat, eating a whole elephant starts with one bite, right? So you gotta start somewhere.
Other questions?
I covered it all.
All right.
Apparently.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it wasn't planned this way, but the school board position is now up. And I believe Angelica is not here.
I think so, no, I don't see her.
Okay, so we have Jennifer Fichamba running for Highline School Board position number 2.
Yes. Good evening. First of all, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Jennifer Fichamba, and I'm an educator that's running for school board. I'm running for the Highline School Board Director 2 position. I have lived in the Highline School District my entire life. I'm a product of the Highline School Board, or not the school board. I am a product of the Highline School District. I went to Gregory Heights Elementary, Sylvester Middle School, and I'm a proud alum of the Highline High School. Go Pirates. I also have left a legacy here, as my son also attended Gregory, Sylvester, and just graduated this June from Highline High School as well. I currently am a college and career counselor in the Tukwila School District at Foster High School. Prior to that, I worked in the Highline School District at Evergreen High School as a college and career specialist, and I also worked at Chinook Middle School working with students with special needs. I have also have been an active member in my local union, the Tukwila Education Association, as the vice president of my union. I've sat on 2 bargains for our union, so I understand the needs of the district as well as the needs of our educators and our students. I think that it's long overdue for school boards to have educators sitting on them because we know exactly the needs of our students and our families, which is part of why I'm running. I think that it's important that we're centering the voices of our stakeholders. Those are our students and our families, as well as our teachers and support staff in our buildings. Oftentimes decisions are made with regards to our students and with regards to curriculum and other programming that happens. And they invite our students, they invite our educators to the table when they've already basically decided what they're going to do. Maybe they have 2 different pieces of curriculum and they're like, choose between these 2. However, there was a big vetting process that happened before that. And so I think it's really important that we bring those folks to the table sooner than later. We have a big responsibility coming up in Highline by selecting a new superintendent. And I really hope when I'm elected that we can be sure to be adding student voice to that, to add our families' voices to that, as well as our educators. I've heard a lot of talk about city council candidates that really find value in partnering with the school district. I agree. I think that a school district can't do it alone. A city can't do it alone. It takes a community to raise our children. And it's really important, if I'm elected to school board, that I will be partnering with my councils that I serve. My service area will be Burien, but that does not mean I will be exclusively just partnering with the council in Burien. I will be working with Des Moines, SeaTac, Normandy Park, and White Center to make sure that the resources that are available, and there are resources out there, that we are doing it with authenticity, and we're making sure that we are bridging the gap for our families so that they understand what is available for them. I think it's really important that the cities and the school district work together because that's the way we can best serve our community, I believe. I think I covered it all, but I'm willing to answer questions and I'm ready. So.
All right, questions? No?
If no one else has a question, I think it's appropriate, since this is.
Sure, no, absolutely.
Council. Are you familiar with the design engineering program at Pacific Middle School?
Funny you should ask that. I have been watching a lot of the school board meetings and I'm very aware that they've cut that program or are in the process of cutting that program. To me, it's really, as a person who survived high school because I was participating in programs like theater, school newspaper and things like that, when programs like that get cut, that really adversely affects our young people. That all has to do with state testing, things like that. So when schools are not meeting their annual yearly progress, for example, oftentimes programs like that will get cut in order to put kids who are struggling in reading or math into more reading and math, which I can tell you as a person who struggled in math, that was the last place I wanted to be, is in another math class. Programs like design and engineering is a great way for students who maybe are not fond of math, but are able to get math skills from a program like that. I also believe that programs like theater, music, all of those support reading and math and science. It all is interchanging. I would have never made it through high school if it wasn't for the art program that I was in, the theater program I was in at Highline. It's because of my theater teacher that I graduated high school and then went on to college. If it wasn't for those programs, I would not be standing here today. So I really do value programs such as that. I see in my high school kids that really thrive in those kinds of programs. So, okay. So I do see how it's really important for them, and I will be a strong advocate for keeping programs like that because our kids need it. They need that outlet. It's not just about English, math, and science. There's different ways to learn those skills. So, yes.
My wife was a paraeducator at Mount Rainier High School, and I noticed the discipline or the lack of discipline just keep getting worse and worse, year by year by year by year. She was hurt a couple times, and nothing ever, I don't mean we have to punish kids, but there has to be some sort of discipline within the school systems. And it seems like we've walked away from that. And the kids know this. The kids know that they're what they can do and what they can get away with.
To be honest, like when it comes to things like discipline, it really depends on the administrator in the school. I worked in schools where I've had administrators that fostered a really positive environment and a positive environment that kids were there to learn and that were very respectful. They brought different things to the table, but I've also worked with administrators that were checked out, and that's when I find that more problems happen, is when the administrators are not participatory. I can think back to a few years at Highline High School. The students will tell you that the principal sat in her office most of the day and was never out in the community in a school building. And a lot of things occurred. There was a lot of racism at the school. There was a lot of, not necessarily violence in a bad way, but like verbal violence between kids. And that is a result of an administrator that is just not in the hallway.
But isn't that the board's responsibility to?
It is, and what the board did is they moved her to another school.
That doesn't solve
the problem.
So
personally, it does not solve the problem for me. Like, I want to have the best administrators in my school buildings. I think that that's really important, and I work with all kinds. Like, I worked with all. I worked at the Evergreen campus where they were 3 small schools. I had 3 administrators, and I worked there for like 8 years, and out of the 8 years I had maybe 2 really solid administrators. And I had an administrator there that let kids basically run the school, and that's when you run into problems. And it is the school board's responsibility to make sure that the people that we're hiring are there for our kids and are there for the right reasons and not just there. I don't know, sometimes I don't know why they're there. But it is our responsibility, and that is something I would value very greatly. I've been able to hire a new principal at Foster High School. I was on the hiring committee, and I will say we got an outstanding principal at Foster. I've also been on the committee to hire a superintendent in Highline because we fired one of our superintendents, and we have a really quality superintendent now who has a heart for kids, and I can see the dynamic in our district changing and the behavior of our kids changing as well because we have stronger administrators. So, yes.
I understand that the dress codes are totally gone now in the Highline School District. One of my granddaughters works in Moines and said that the young lady from Mount Rainier showed up where you could, with the see-through, no bra, totally 100% see-through. Okay, I don't know what school district would ever allow that other than the Highline School District? With you going in, or if you are elected, would you look into stopping?
Well, I think that's a pretty sweeping statement to say that only the Highline School District has that policy. My son just graduated from Highline High School, and I can say that when I've been in attendance and I go to a lot of events at Highline as an alumni, I don't see dress code violations like that, and so I would say it's a sweeping statement to say that that is a Highline School District thing. However, I do think that we over-police our young women. What you're describing is definitely not appropriate, but we do over-police our women, our young women, and how they're dressed. If I've seen girls sent home because like they have a sweater that comes down a little bit, and that's a dress code violation. So we have to have a balance. We cannot be over-policing our young girls and saying they're a distraction. Our boys also have to learn how to behave around girls as well. I have young girls in my school that are very well developed, and you know, they're covered completely, but they've been called on dress code violation because their t-shirt that covers everything is too tight. So there has to be a balance. What you're describing is definitely extreme, and of course that should be addressed. However, oftentimes our young girls are policed at a higher level than our young boys are. And so there has to be a balance. But I do think it's sweeping to say it's only the Highline School District, and it is the Highline School District that has these policies. Because I don't agree with that.
I guess the way I look at it is that I know students, good students, have actually had to leave the Highline School District. Well, their parents actually put them in Kennedy or went to Federal Way.
I would like to understand what you mean by a good student, because personally I kept my child in the Highline School District. I have a lot of friends that he grew up with that are girls that are stayed in the Highline School District, all of which are outstanding young people that have gone on to college, have gone into apprenticeship programs. So when you say good students, that's a pretty charged statement to say. We have a lot of outstanding students in the Highline School District. Outstanding. And to make statements like, well, the good students have been taken to Kennedy High School or somewhere else is a very charged statement, and I don't totally appreciate it as a parent of a student in Highline.
I'm sorry, I know it's getting late, but I did have one. I think it's important to have some idea. How do you think that schools can help a lot of students who are now far behind because of COVID catch up in our education system?
So, some of the things that need to happen is really building partnerships to make sure that we have extra tutoring available to our young people. I think Jean was saying, having a partnership with the community centers. I know in Burien, the Burien Community Center has a robust after-school program at both Sylvester and Highline High School where they do offer tutoring plus enrichment activities. And I think that's how you support our young people. And I also just want to kill this misnomer that our kids are so far behind. Our kids learned a lot in the last year. They learned resilience. They learned how to overcome adversity in a time where, it was a struggle. And as an educator too, we also learned a lot. We had to learn how to educate our young people in a time where that's not the normal way of doing things. And I can tell you our kids were showing up, and I've seen our kids perform in this environment that is totally different. But they did learn a lot. And did they learn the classic way of learning? They didn't, but they also learned some many great life skills that will help them in their future. So I think the partnership in having after-school programs, robust after-school programs with tutoring and part of it will be what's helping our students.
Anybody? Okay.
Yeah, actually, I think that's the idea of tutoring. I wanted to bring up to you, David. There are so many retired teachers here. I would be happy to, have one night a month, a retired teacher sits at every. I can teach reading. I can teach math. I can teach writing. I can teach reading and writing at high levels. Clear through. Now my math, basic computation, and then forget it.
But a math teacher once told me all you have to be is a person, and then you have to do math. Because I also say that, but
yeah,
I agree.
Other than computation.
I will say that we would really appreciate, as a person who works in the school, we would appreciate community offering to help out in our after-school programs, because at Foster we have after-school program. You have to be vaccinated to be in our schools, that is a caveat, and so, but we always are willing to have people come in and work with our young people. It's such an advantage, really. So.
But just one night a week, just have.
Well, we actually do have something that's already going on. Don't we have one night a week where
We have one group that comes in on one day a week to tutor kids that are trying to catch
we
up.
actually do already have something started here.
And we donate the hall, so.
But it's important because it would be great as an educator to know like these resources, and then that way I'm able to partner.
Right, yeah, I didn't
You know,
even know
and I
what's
think
going
sometimes
on.
that's the missing link is that we haven't like we don't know all the resources, and if we're making true partnerships with our cities, then we're able to like filter our kids and our families to y'all.
So, also Gregory Heights.
Yay,
West
Gregory
Carolina,
Heights.
And Highline. So in '94 when I graduated from Highline, it was still a mess. So you got a lot of work ahead of you. What would be your first thing that you would go after if you got elected?
Well, I think the first thing that I'm excited about doing is hiring a superintendent that puts kids at the center of the decisions that are made. I think that we've had a superintendent that is very good at like talking a good talk, but she doesn't really involve the students in the way that, and the families in the way that she should be. I've seen it as a person who worked in the district, I've seen it as a parent, and so I think our opportunity is having leadership in our district that will help bring our community together in a more sincere way, and really like taking our kids and like really getting to know them by name, strength, and need, which is her thing. I had a superintendent that I worked with in Tukwila who was really invested in the kids, and the kids knew who she was, and they knew that they could count on her for support, and that really made an impact for our young people. She went on to she moved out of the state with her husband, but I think that that's really important, is having leadership in the district that really stands behind what they're saying, that they know kids by name, strength, and need. Because I can tell you the superintendent did not know my son at all. And Fichamba is not like a hard name to forget. I mean, there's only he and I, and his dad, but his dad doesn't live period. I think that's really important, is having leadership that really values our kids and really values our students' voice, because it's their education and we're all here to help them get to the next level. So I hope that answered your question.
It helps, yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.